back to the Meeple Marathon. Today we're going to talk about how to play Ascension Tactics Inferno. Specifically, we're just going to cover the differences between Inferno and the original Ascension Tactics. This is a standalone core game, and for the most part it plays very similar, almost identical to the original Ascension Tactics. And I have a video already describing how to play Ascension Tactics, including the solo rules. You can check out that video popping up in the upper right corner now. So if you're not familiar with the Ascension Tactics at all, check out that video first, then come back to this one and we'll explain what they've added to Inferno that sets it apart from the base one. So probably the biggest thing I would say that they have added to Inferno is quests. So you'll notice over here that I have my large stack of center row cards, and I have this smaller deck here. I also have this card right here that just sits face up all the time, and it has this quest action of exploration. At any point in time on my turn, I can pay 3 command. It's not 3 purchasing power, it's 3 command. So I essentially am giving up commanding say my Cannon Templar here who could be commanded for 3. So this is a choice you have to make. But if you explore, you get to come into the quest pile, you get to draw the top 2 cards, and you get to look at them. Now, there's a few things here. There is like a faction to the quest. You do not have to have a champion within those factions. It just, kind of might make things easier to decide. Then you have a name for the quest. Then you have what needs to happen. Here you can say, here for this fallen quest, all you have to do is play another fallen card. Here you just have to defeat a champion. All right. So some of them are very simple, some of them are harder. You get to choose one of these to keep in front of you. And then this quest, this goal, becomes your active goal. If you complete the quest, you get to add this card underneath your champion, similar to a construct. So if I defeat a champion and this was my quest, I would place this under any champion of my choice, and it says this champion has slay, ready another one of your champions. Or this one says this champion has fallen allegiance, +2 attack, and reach. I'll talk about reach here in a second. So depending on which you choose, you add that, and it's basically like a permanent construct. So even if your champion is defeated, they do not lose their quest rewards. You can explore as much as you want, but again, you're giving up the chance to command some of your champions in order to go exploring. All right. So that's probably the biggest difference in my opinion. Something that we briefly just touched on, so we'll go ahead and cover that now, is just a new kind of symbol and keyword, and that is reach. So we have range. Range used to be 3 hexes away within line of sight, like these trees here, the Tainted Forest would block line of sight. Reach allows you to have a space in between you, essentially. Think of it as like the long staff in many dungeon crawlers, where essentially 2 hexes away you can attack someone. So here, if you play the Flying Fish Knight, that you would gain, he would give you 3 command, and then one of your champions for this turn would gain reach, and also gives you fallen allegiance. Your champions with reach can attack enemies up to 4 hexes away. So that's actually really good, because that's further than a standard range, but that's just, it looks like a whip to me. I don't know what else to call it, but that's what I've been calling it, the whip symbol for reach. So that's a pretty easy one to wrap your head around. All right. Up next, we're going to talk about transforming. So there are, there's actually lots of like the dual faction champions here. I have a lot of them up here. I really like playing with these early on because they give you a lot of allegiance options. So I would recommend playing with these. There was, I think, 1 or 2 of them in the original Adventure Tactics game, but there's several more. But there are some who will transform. So here I've pulled out a couple. Here's Emma Ironheart. When you play a construct, if you control 2 or more constructs, transform Emma Ironheart into Mecha Ironheart. So I have this champion, and I would have her out, but if I can get 2 constructs out, I'm able to swap her out for Mecha Ironheart. So I would completely remove her standee or her miniature, remove her card, and put this one out. If she's out on the board, I replace her miniature with the Mecha Ironheart miniature, and this is now were stats. So if you look at them side by side here, she didn't really have any special ability other than transform, but she gets 3 additional attack, 3 additional defense. She has +1 movement, and slay, she draws a card. So that's really cool. Let's look at another one here because these are fun to play with. Jira the Unbreakable basically has slay, transform her into Jira the Mercy, and you can see here that she's getting additional defense, double the attack, but she doesn't have a lot of attack to begin with, so she's not as going to be as easy. And then the last one is actually really interesting here. Virik the First, he doesn't actually transform himself. He can transform an adjacent unoccupied forest into a living earth. So he would actually take one of these tiles here and just say for his turn, all right, this is now a living earth. You can see it has 0 to command, but you essentially have to have Virik the First in order to command a tile. But Living Earth has -1 movement and is a minion. We're going to talk about minions here in just a second. Living Earth is still considered to be a forest. So for the purposes of another champion having to move through that forest for that turn, they would still have to spend an extra movement to enter. So it's still considered terrain, but Virik the First essentially transforms this into something he can go attack with for 4 attack. So that's cool too. All right, let's roll right into the next difference, and this one is pretty easy to pick up on as well. There are no cultists in this game. Cultists were the classic kind of always available minion that you could draw into your hand and then throw out there. In Ascension Tactics, they were like a pawn compared to like your knight and your bishop and your castle and your queen. They were always available to command, throw them out on the board. You would just add a standee of your particular color to them so you would know that they're yours. We've gotten rid of cultists, and now we have the giant rat. So and they're not called cultists, they're called minions. So there are some champions, some of the villain champions and fallen champions like the Rat King here, who will specifically control the giant rats. But in a standard game, you could simply pay 1 to put a giant rat, to put your color base underneath them, and throw them out on the board. You can see they don't do much. They're 1 and 1, but they can help control waypoints. They could also give you that edge you might need to put the final attack on somebody to take them down. So they are these just simple little standees. Here you can see as far as the standees go, here's a full-size champion one, and here's a giant rat next to them. So that's a little different. They've also added a Doe-Fiend rat. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. A Doe-Fiend rat cannot just be commanded at will like the giant rats or the cultists could. You actually have to have a card that specifically mentions command a Doe-Fiend rat. But for the purposes of card effects and other things, a Doe-Fiend rat is also a minion. So they basically got rid of cultists, added minions in the form of rats, and there's kind of 2 types of them. So that's different. But really it just was replacing cultists. So again, that should be something else that's easy to wrap your head around. The last thing that they have added to the game are these Devour soul tokens. So these are, they're double-sided, but they're exactly the same on both sides. And these specifically, you were looking for example, the Ravenous Gorf here. Says at the start of the game, put a Devour Soul token on Ravenous Gorf. Slay, put a Devour Soul token on Ravenous Gorf. So But if he's defeated, his text says to get rid of them all. These are just +1 attack, +1 defense, but they, similar to a quest, do not get taken off your champion or the other champion when your champion is defeated. So they stay with you. Only specific card effects can remove a Devour Soul token. So you can actually start stacking these, similar to constructs, but they're could be easier to obtain for certain characters other than others, and they come in the form of these tokens. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the differences between Inferno and base adventure or Ascension Tactics. I think that what they are adding here is a great amount of differences without making the game overly complicated. I was able to jump right in. The rulebook does a nice job of highlighting this is what's new to Inferno. So again, if you're familiar with Ascension Tactics, you can easily pick up, read through the rules in 10 minutes or less, and be playing Ascension Tactics Inferno in no time. If for some reason you've made it through this entire video and still don't know how to basically play Ascension Tactics, it is a deck building game where they add the ability to move a standee or miniature around and directly attack an adjacent standee or miniature. So they turn a deck builder and they turn it into a tactical skirmish game, which is what you see here. You're basically trying to claim waypoints via majority. Also, you get points for slaying other champions. They're worth, the more they are to command, the more they're worth when you slay them. And you play to a certain point value by acquiring these crystals. That, again, is a brief overview. I highly recommend, if you're interested, to go check out my how to play video on Ascension Tactics and then come back here. But if you are a fan of deck builders or you're a fan of tactical skirmish games, again, I'm going to highly recommend this one because it is quite simple, but a lot of fun and strategy and figuring out who you want to control each time, what you're going after, so on and so forth. So that's that. If you're interested in seeing a solo playthrough of Ascension Tactics, let me know. That's easily something I could put on the channel, but I do have a solo playthrough of base Ascension Tactics too if you want to see the game in action. The solo game plays almost exactly the same. There's almost zero changes as far as how the solo game goes. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hopefully this was helpful for anybody considering picking up Inferno, who also has Ascension Tactics. And yeah, otherwise, have a great day.